Warning, F-bombs are armed and may be dropped. Welcome to 29 April 2021. Would help if I could the dates. Before I even started, Great Sky Troll Anti-Drama said YouTube sucks, that is all. And oh, yes, he is right. I would walk away from this shit in a heartbeat if I could. George Washington, I am so fucking ready. Oh, George. You just stand by for a few minutes because I'm going to get into that a lot. Uh, but I want to leave a few minutes, let a few people walk in before I go into my actual rant that might get me in trouble. And I honestly just don't give a fuck. I warned you, F bombs are armed and maybe dropped. What did you expect? I'm trying a little experiment this time. It's not working out the way I hoped it would, but I have the chat in a screen share. So people in the future can see what was actually said and about the time it was said. George has also alerted me that the 10-second lag may be about a 5-second lag, maybe even 2-second lag. So, Mr. President, thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. It would help fit the right screen. All right. So, amongst this week's other craziness, I would say it's crazy, except it's so regular that I don't even think it qualifies as news. I love the expression in other news, water's still wet, to say that, yeah, that's the way it always has been and always will be. Antifa got into another riot. Wow. Let's pretend to be shocked. Apparently, this was about 4 or 5 days ago. Set fire to buildings in Portland, Oregon. Like I said, I'm shocked to discover this, but I have a guy walking up with my winnings. Also very fond of that one. All right, so I caught part of a Carolyn Bajenko, and I know I'm mispronouncing the name. She's basically she's the main spokesman for Walk Away. She actually knows, and I think used to be roommates with Brandon Straka. That my understanding is they used to be roommates or neighbors, maybe. That's not totally clear, but anyway, she knows him personally. She has his phone number on speed dial, and he takes those calls. That's how well she knows him, right? And he knows her. She does a live stream with another individual. Okay, good for them. During the live stream, they got to talking about the Chauvin verdict. And the other individual said, how much worse would it have been with a not guilty verdict? Well, if what we're seeing now is any indication, it must have been really, really bad with the not guilty verdict. They've set fire to cities again. Not that this is a real surprise. The whole plan this summer is to set fire to cities. And I could say a whole lot more than I already have, but I don't want to write their playbook for them, right? I really want to write the governor's playbooks for them. Okay, this is what's going to happen, and this is the best way to respond and plan for it. I will go so far as to say basically have a 747 flying overhead 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like a B-52 on Chrome Dome. It'll be the best way to suppress the inevitable fires. The closest thing to a specific detail I would give is to tell the people of Oakland to leave your lawn sprinklers on. Leave your back sprinklers on. Even if they're on low, just leave them on continuously. Or, you know, take a little trip out of town. Say Fairfield, Dixon, somewhere in that range. Zamora, I hear Zamora is very nice, but they only have one hotel. That's as detailed as I'm willing to get on an open circuit, at least. Okay. Um, and yeah, for those of you on that closed circuit system, uh, I, I would say if you check in there, you can ask me, and I'll tell you what the big target is. I have a particular city, well, two cities in mind as a final target point. There you go. It's not the one you're thinking of. Flag on the play. It's not Minneapolis. They don't give a shit about Minneapolis one way or the other. BLM barely gives a shit. And Antifa couldn't give any lesser fucks if they tried. That's just a stepping stone. And a stepping stone that they could kick out of the way if they really wanted to. 2021, you were supposed to be the end of 2020. What happened? Moving on. All right, you notice I have the red pack behind me. I have actually, the first time it was in the live stream, it was an accident. It was just sitting there. I didn't think about it. But after that, I realized, hey, it's not a bad idea. Keep reminding people to have their red packs. I'd say, for me, it's a 24-hour get home bag. All that is if I have to walk home from work because any number of reasons, which may not even be any kind of fault or blame of humans, I can still get home. It'll suck, but I can still get home. The only thing that would really stop me is a really bad fire, which around here is highly unlikely. But I gave one to Apothecary. He was actually on the wrong side of the Zog fire for about 2 hours. That's not good. He would have had to have either driven 60 miles one direction or walked 4 hours a different direction. And with his hip, he would have had to drive, even if they let him drive, which they probably have. So he would have actually had to stop, get out, and then walk another 4 or 5 hours, which wouldn't have happened. That's quite unfortunate. For the rest of us, the one-day kit should be enough, as long as you have water. All right, George Washington, we've got to be ready at all times, 24/7, 365. And there is, I agree, there is actually a problem. It's kind of a problem than most people might totally understand. Um, again, I don't want to write Antifa's playbook for them. Even when I was in the military, I couldn't wear or carry a gas mask 24/7. Right? When we were on our 2-week drills, we did. But even then, I have to stop and shower sometime. Even then, I have to eat sometime. Even then, I have to do a lot of things. I just can't wear my mask. Even if it's in the pouch, I can't have it on me when I'm doing those things. Something to keep in mind. Pearl, I have no idea what and 1-4 refers to, so please enlighten me. Okay, so we're 10 minutes in. I'm going to go ahead and start the real meat. I got to stop this screen, start a different one. Ah, all right. There. This is from the Viva Free channel, and I've skipped ahead to the important part. Okay. So, for those of you that don't know, which is actually pretty much everybody, I am a US citizen by birth. I'm also a Canadian citizen by birth. Fun fact. My grandmother was a Canadian citizen and, in fact, was never a US citizen. Back in the 40s and 50s, it was a little bit easier to do this. Today, it'd be much harder, but she never renounced her Canadian citizenship, even when she was married, and in fact held her Canadian citizenship and never obtained US citizenship her entire life. Or if she got US citizenship, actual US citizenship, that's news to me. All right, that's back. One of these days, I'm actually going to be a master at this live stream thing. No, not really. But anyway, um, Justin, whether I like it or not, you are my prime minister. I didn't vote for you. I don't vote in any Canadian elections. I don't actually live in Canada, and I've only been there a total of about 72 hours in my life, I think, maybe, with if you count sleep time. I don't really feel a particular right, I guess I should put it, to vote in Canadian elections until you shut your mouth off right there. Right now, I wish I drank off my live streams because I'd really be going off. His exact words, and I'm going to read it because I took the liberty of writing it down ahead of time. Some people are looking for constitutional conversations. I'm not going to engage in those right now. I am focused on getting us through this pandemic. Link in the description if you want to go check that out as well. Timestamped link. You can't avoid the constitutional conversations, Justin. But you've done it anyway. You've said the Constitution is suspended because you said so. Okay. amongst other bad ideas that he's had in the last couple of years. And, when you keep doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results, you need to start asking yourself, who's the crazy one? Let's move on. He's pushed an even bigger bill that apparently didn't go anywhere. And now he said that you don't have your constitutional rights, including your right basically to appeal. Oh, really? Now, flashpoint for this was a set of uh, mandates that he put in place, right? The Canadian legislature, as far as I can tell, didn't have any say in the matter, or if they did, it was an advisory role only. If you return to Canada, if you were sent out of Canada, let's say January, on a 6-month assignment for the government or for the private parties, it doesn't matter to me, and you were out of the country during the last week, when you come back to Canada, you have to go into a custodial setting mandated by the state. Oh, it's a hotel. Let's go there. It's a hotel. It's not jail. No, 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 no. Anytime the state can take custody of you, anytime you are not free to leave, you've been arrested, right? The time I got arrested, I didn't even do anything illegal, right? It was suspicious. And when I found out the rest of the story, I realized, oh, if I'd known that, I'd have done this differently. We wouldn't have even been here. Now, all these people have done is leave the country legally, returned legally, but returned in a time frame that he didn't like. And now you don't even have a right to appeal. The courts have dismissed the appeal attempt. That is the unlawful use of force by a head of state for enforcement of their word. That's a tyrant. And I would love to see anybody who tried to defy this new mandate. I know there's a gentleman came back way the hell back in, I think it was February of last year, maybe March of last year, and just said, no, I'm not doing it, and walked on out of the airport and got away with it. Yeah, that was a year ago. This was last week. This new mandate was last week. I'm going to say this straight up. The moment the guns come out, stop fighting. You're going to lose. And the only thing that's going to happen is they're going to convict your corpse. Until then, go ahead. I, don't get yourself killed over Justin's illegal man at this point. The true test of a tyrant, though, is have they created a circumstance by which you have to fight for your life or you are going to die or suffer permanently. A certain German elected official back in the 1930s was an absolute tyrant with no exceptions or buts and a genocidal maniac on top of it. And people did have to fight for their lives because they were going to die if they didn't. And contrary to common misconception, some of them did. InRange TV did one of the best uh, stories on this that I've heard of so far, other than a movie, which movies are fictional, even if they're based on facts. So don't put too much stock in some lady running around the spire of, I think, a chapel, throwing large, heavy objects filled with interesting powders down on German fighters. Right? Don't put too much stock in whether that happened or not, because I don't think it did. But some of them did rise up at different points. Now, Canadians are being backed into that same position. Now, this chap of Edmonton, Alberta, he stood up to him. He used some language that I probably wouldn't have myself, and pointed some fingers that I wouldn't have myself. There was definitely a bad guy and that bad girl in that story. And she was using power of the state to intimidate. The next time she comes back, it will be with the actual SWAT team. That is the way it is. And they are setting this situation up so that they can justify using that level of force. Justin Trudeau, and I don't use these words lightly, is a legitimate tyrant. All right, I'm going to catch up. George Washington said, I've seen multiple Canadian citizens sending SOS messages online. I've seen one of those myself. Um, and Trudeau needs to play some vertical jump rope with dirty brand. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to remember that one. Troll asked George to explain the SOS message. There are Canadians actually making these messages, calling out to the United States. The one I saw was begging us to help them in their fight against Trudeau. Flag on the play. That I saw, it was a couple days before I saw Viva's video, which is legitimately all I've seen of Trudeau's new edicts from heaven, mandates of heaven, whatever. The guy's standing, it's holding the camera more or less like this, I think, and he actually says, "Please help us." I wish I'd known that question was, or the issue was going to come up. I would have had the video standing by in another tab for you. But that is literally what he said. And behind him, you see a like had half dozen maybe maple leaves. I know I saw one because it was clear enough. I could tell it was hanging the wrong direction. Right. Well, it was hanging from a guide on, so they do end up hanging the wrong direction from time to time. It's supposed to hang to the viewer's right, it was hanging to the viewer's left. It's on a guide on. That's what happens. He's literally begging the Americans to come up and help them. And as a 1/4 myself, there is something I'd very much love to do to help them. Those of you that know the closed circuit, you know, you've seen it. But I can't do that right now. It is what it is. That line about vertical jump rope with a sturdy branch, yeah, that's good. That's a lot better than the ones I've thought of. Um, Canadians, I'm just going to say this the way it is. Your prime minister, our prime minister, has set the stage where he will be a tyrant. I'm speaking to you, leftists, hardcore Trudeau supporters out there, and I know you will. I know one of you from outside of this, from my to the fetish community, right? What he's doing now is going to become what he does to you tomorrow. He's going to parlay. Oh no, Carrie's using big words again. This to mandates related to the pandemic or to the other crisis or to the new crisis that he makes up out of. Thin blue air, right? He's just going to pull something out of his ass to justify doing what he's wanted to do all along. I gotta say, Justin, you did learn. I'm gotta compliment you. You're not as stupid as you act. That day when uh, Merkel bent you over, you and your out the lube, you learned from that mistake. I got to give you credit. I didn't think you were capable. Congratulations, you proved me wrong. I guess all those stitches she caused you might have woke you up to what's going on. Okay. I don't know how far this will have to go, but Trudeau has become the Canadian German dictator. Right now, all he's doing is biding his time, doing the little bits and pieces that he's got to make it look like everything's on the level. Oh, we did this 2 years ago. We did that a year ago. Oh, we did this other thing 6 months ago. Oh, and these didn't work. The problems continued. So now I've got to raise the ante and raise the ante and raise it some more. I think he's watching the Edmonton Street Church, I think it's called, case basically 24/7, waiting to see what happens next so that he can figure out what he needs to do to address the tiny, tiny little details. And I'm going to tell you what they're going to do next. That health department, that lady from the health department, the one who keeps showing up and harassing them, she's going to get tired of playing games. She's going to go back to a judge and say, Your Honor, we have attempted to work with this guy. He is refusing to talk to us. He's refusing to even talk to us. Here, this is the video that he himself put out. And with him speaking about Gestapo and everything else, Your Honor, we're asking for an arrest warrant. Their hope, and I'm saying this straight out, their hope is that, first of all, that the judge will grant the arrest warrant, which he will. They're going to go back with now 20 cops. Arthur is going to say no in the way that he does again. Fight's going to break out. And one of the cops is going to shoot in what is later deemed self-defense, whether it was strictly speaking self-defense or not. That is literally her plan. And unfortunately, Chaplain Arthur is kind of playing into it, and that's unfortunate. It's also understandable under the circumstances. This bitch keeps harassing him because he's holding a service. No, 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 no. That was the closure of chapels in the United States, and specifically the ones in Michigan where uh, Gretchen ordered the state police to throw nails in a parking lot. was my clue that something had gone wrong here. And, it's not even that she ordered the police to come down and start looking at who's going on and maybe even arresting people. No, no, no. It was the nails thing. The nails were intended to blow out tires. Driving along on a blown out tire, you're going to lose control. Somebody's going to get hurt. This was a very malicious attempt to get somebody hurt so that she could say, "See, I told you so." No, that's not acceptable at any level. Somebody give me a 1 in chat, because I think they took me off the air for talking ill about Il Duce. Il Duce Light for now. Um, Justin has to go. Thank you, TJ. Um, I'm not even gonna lie. Not. I'm entirely sure I don't care how. All right. I'm sitting here shocked and utterly, overwhelmingly non-believant. Canadian Parliament hasn't removed him, and I do mean by force, guns drawn and everything. The things that he has done has specifically ignored their authority, which was to set a long-term plan. They're letting him get away with it. Why? It's not because they love him. All right. Now, I know that there are his supporters, which is the majority of the parliament, and but even they should be stepping up and saying, "No, no, 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 Justin, come here. We need to have a constitutional conversation, like right now. You don't want to have that conversation? Oh, well, okay. One of us is going to continue to speak from office, and one of us is not. Why the parliament has chosen not to remove him by force, if necessary, from office is just staggering to me. I don't understand it. He's not that popular. He cannot really be that popular. And I'm not even going to compare him to other um, world leaders or recently former world leaders, because there's no real comparison. Canada is kind of its own little animal as a society. You know that it's real when Canadians are angry. When Canadians, non-immigrant Canadians, are angry enough to start using bad words, that's a sign something has actually gone wrong. And to my other countrymen out there, um, Justin's a goof. Justin has gone full on goof. uh, I'm gonna catch. I'm gonna bring up the chat because there's something I skipped. Great Sky Troll Anti-Drama said, Bill of Rights, notice it's big R in rights. Actually, big B and O, but that's not the point here. More of the point, it's things that you can't realistically avoid in the real world. All right? To achieve the level of nonviolence needed that you can take a beating, can take up to 6 months of actual serious training. Curl up in a ball. You have to learn how to sit in the ball. You have to learn how to get sprayed down by a fire hose and hopefully survive. You have an absolute natural instinct, not even right, an instinct to self-defense. And now the Canadian government has chosen, Justin Trudeau, excuse me, has chosen to ignore that natural inclination. Why? Why has he taken it upon himself to suspend your genetic nature? And I said genetic nature, I meant this is absolutely what you will do. Justin's a goof. Time for him to go. And I don't care how. All right. We are now at minute 30. On a lesser related note, a certain individual that I really hate because he's a grifter. There, I said it. He's a grifter. Fuck him. Was placed on the no-fly list. No-fly list, for those of you who need a quick history lesson, was created as part of Patriot Act, which I supported at the time, and I'm having trouble letting go of that support now. That said that if you are a known dangerous person, they don't have to let you on a plane. And in fact, they cannot let you on a plane. This individual was at a certain rally 4 months and 13 days ago. Excuse me, 3 months and 13 days ago. Nobody has ever said anything about him being violent at the rally. In fact, I didn't even know he was at the rally until yesterday. Shouldn't be surprised, but I didn't know he was there. Um, and now he's on the no-fly list for being there. He's not alone. Mindy Robinson was also there, and two others. Who were they? Oh, Brandon Straka was one of them. Brandon was actually on the ladder leading up to the main doors. There's a photograph of him. He's never denied that. It could be said that he was storming the doors. It could also be said that the doors were open by this point. So I guess define storming for those of us that are a little more familiar with violence. Um, Troll, I saw that. Hi. Um, Mindy, as far as I can tell, never actually even got off the sidewalk. Now, maybe she did and I didn't see that part. Yeah, okay, whatever. These people have all been labeled as the same as Al Qaeda, uh, uh, ISIS. Uh, for those of us who are a little bit older, uh, Timothy McVeigh types. Oh, really? Okay, good to know. For those of you who might be a little bit older and remember OKC when it happened, um, I have friends who were there after the fact. One's got a really fucked up story about finding somebody alive, coming back 2 minutes later, and she wasn't anymore. That's that's gotta suck. A memorial. I've been to the chairs. I even had a photograph of the 19 chairs, which Those of you that know, you know exactly what I just said. I had that list memorized for years. Here we are now, that people who literally just said, we want an investigation, we want answers to questions that we're not answered, are being called terrorists for demanding those answers. Oh, but there was violence. Yeah, you know what? 6 people died. Let's go there. One of them, the cop, died the next day of something unrelated. Tragic. And the events of the previous day probably did cause him stress, and that may have aggravated the problem. The riot did not kill him. All it didn't have. It was not the cause of his death. End of discussion. That let's talk about the other 5. I only know about one of the other 5, and I've got something to say about Ashley Babbitt's death that's not going to be very popular. I've seen a 4-point video that was as well synced as possible for somebody working from a laptop. Shows her in the passageway. Here's the door. She's pretty close to the passageway, right? I don't see her ever actually touch the door, right? Coming up the passageway were 3 Capitol cops with their M16s. Those guys do not carry AR-15s. They don't have pinned M16s. They have actual M16s for a real reason, right? And if that crowd had been armed, I would have understood them opening fire. They weren't. She's seeing 3 cops coming up with M16s out. People around her are going crazy and breaking windows and shit. Now she thinks her life is in legitimate danger, and the only place that's safe from these guys when they open fire is the other side of this door. This continues to be my theory. She was trying to escape the violence the only way she had left, and walked right into the cop that opened fire. I'm also going to say I'm not holding this against the cop that did open fire, because all he knows is that door is locked, it's barricaded for a reason, and people are coming through. I have to stop them from getting through that door one way or another. He stopped them. And that also was a big fat red flag, a flare on the play that everybody understood, wait a second, this thing has gone too far now. Shots have been fired. This has gotten out of hand. We need to stop. We all need to stop. As far as I can tell, Ashley was there as a tourist. She wasn't part of the rally. She just picked the wrong day to do a tour of the Congress. That happens. There were people at the Murrah building who were there to meet with friends for lunch who also died. That does happen. So, no fly list as draconian, legitimately draconian measures go, pretty low grade draconian measures. But it's time to stop using this as a political weapon, right? It's time to get some accountability in that list. And it's actually well past time. But nobody understood the need to do that until now, when it's being pointedly used as a weapon. Oh, there's alternative people will say, nah, I don't care, right? I just don't care. It was time 2 years ago when this started to happen that the list needed to be addressed. Now it's actually happening en masse. For step on that line, one, you cannot go on that list in secret, right? They, the TSA has to make every reasonable effort to contact you and tell you you are being considered for the list. You have 30 days to respond. Now, if you are somebody who is trying to keep off of contact, Osama bin Laden didn't exactly have his email address and his home address. It's kind of on you. They can contact you at all. You have 30 days to respond to being placed on the list. And all you have to do is grab a pen in whatever color happens to be available to you at the moment and fill out the list and say, this is fill out a form and say, this is why I think I have been placed on this list. And you automatically go to an appeal. If you don't fill it out, you don't go to appeal. Or you don't automatically go to appeal and you stay on the list until your appeal is heard. Kind of a situation you do to yourself there. You had a chance to respond, you didn't. That's not their fault. To the best of my knowledge, no fly list has not actually revealed a single person who should be on it. But it has revealed over 100 people who should not be on it. It's also revealed at least 5 cases that I'm at least vaguely familiar with, and one case I know personally of people whose identities were stolen, and that's how they got on the list. My late partner was one of them. Um, Before he was a prison guard, he was put on the list because somebody, I don't know who, somebody stole his ID, his identity when he was still in the guard. Okay. Really? You stole a member of the military's ID? Got a little bit better. This guy ran up like $50,000 worth of purchases. Oh, that's not good either. And then he did something that got him put on the list. Okay. He discovered this fact when he went to apply to the uh, uh, Bureau Department of Corrections. And they were doing a background on him. He didn't even know. Apparently, that's how a lot of people find out they're on that list. Is they do something else unrelated to flying that they get a background check for. And hey, guess what? You're on the no-fly list. What do you mean I'm on the no-fly list? For what it's worth, Brent didn't like flying either. He would he would fly only if the drive was over 12. I know he said something about a day and a half at one point. This is how most people end up finding out. They're getting a background check for something and find out you're a no-fly list member. Um, how do I put this? There's a reason why we only have one secret court, and there's a reason why that secret court is not popular with a lot of people. FISA is for rooting out spies, not for rooting out or persecuting political dissidents. That's a completely inappropriate use at every level. Flag on the play. That amendment, Fifth Amendment, excuse me, First Amendment, was passed because the British Crown could hold secret trials, and you wouldn't even know what you were charged with until you were tried and convicted and sentenced. You're sitting in a cell being told that you were tried for treason against the king. Really? What treason? What did I do? There's actually a case study. It's a case of Sir Edward Drake. Um, there were people that afterwards were told, or there were people afterwards that said that not only if they'd had to look him in the eye in court, they wouldn't have said what they said, but at least one of the witnesses stated that she was tortured to get the statement that the judge wanted to hear. Apparently, this was a lady in waiting of a acquaintance of Drake. Not exactly sure, but supposedly she overheard a conversation in which he said things for which he was later hung. And that was not the abnorm either. It's when this kind of path all the way back to possibly the Akkadian Empire, which means a long, long way. The only empire before that would have been Golebi, right? That's how far back the Akkadians go. Stopped to that and said you cannot hold a trial in secret. Flash forward to the 1950s, and they said, we have all of this evidence, but we can't talk about it in public because it would reveal our own secrets. We need to do something. So they established FISA. One of the rules of FISA, and this is going to keep coming up for the next few months, you go into that courtroom and you tell exactly the truth, and you can't shade it, you can't massage it. You have to tell them exactly what was actually said or exactly what you actually saw. That's it. Um, a fictional example from Law and Order was some computer guy or electronic store guy. He sold some video games to Libya. Okay, who cares? It's NES or SNES or whatever. Well, part of the problem was that in the story, this game console had enough processing power for a ballistic missile. Oh, well, that's a problem. In reality, a computer console or a game console might have that kind of computing power, but the moment a rocket motor goes off, that console isn't, or that motherboard isn't a motherboard anymore. It's a pile of silicon and gold and aluminum, I think, dust in a shell casing. But it worked in the story. He goes in this Law and Order episode. The cop goes to the judge and says, "This is what I found." The FISA judge. He also gets called because in the course of searching through the man's house, he found a gun that he kept. The gun that they needed to prove that Jack needed to prove the murder even had anything to do with this guy. You have to go in there, you have to tell the exact truth. Even something as stupid as, I found a gun and I kept it. Had nothing to do with selling these consoles. I found a gun and I kept it. Okay. Now we have a second secret court for domestic for domestic terrorists. Well, okay, go to FISA. Only they're not going to FISA, are they? They're going to TSA and saying to TSA, this guy is a terrorist. Oh, for what? For being at the Capitol? No, this is ridiculous. It's unacceptable. It's time to get the TSA reined in. And I'm saying this as somebody who was who still is a TSA supporter. It's time for them to get reined in a lot. All right. I promised you guys last week that I was going to go way in depth with the uh, Section 1 definitions, Title 1, excuse me, definitions. And so I am about to do that. Stop one screen just to turn around, share another one. Yeah, no, it's not closed. I don't know what the hell. Keep having this problem. There we go. Not a very efficient screen share system. I'm not even gonna lie. There we go. All right. So Title 3 definitions. Firearm, any weapon that launches one or more projectiles or energy driven by the actions of an explosive or energizing force. Um, it's kind of funny. That's actually that originally any weapon that launches one or more projectiles through a tubular barrel. And as I started this part of the project, I realized that's out of date. I needed to update it. Um, this is actually written with James Kirk in mind. The laser weapons or phasers or anything except the Force blasters that I know of don't actually use a tube. So the definition for a firearm wouldn't apply to them. Now what? Well, 40 of the 50 states would say there's nothing we can do. It's not a firearm. One of the states, at least until recently, tried to say, oh, but it's not, it didn't exist at the time of the Second Amendment, so it's not covered. My understanding is Massachusetts got handed their ass on that one, but they tried. They legitimately tried, and they got away with it for a couple of years. Either way, I got around that problem. I put the widest possible definition up. Oh, um, and as far as I can tell, this will cover everything, including that inevitable day when lasers, which have no physical structure coming out, will be the norm. And I think that's going to be in about 20 years. So this really urgently needed. Pistols and handguns. Any firearm without a stock intended to be operated by one hand. Um, that would actually include some rifle caliber pistols. The PLR 16, for example, you can handle it or use it one handed. It's kind of uncomfortable, but you can do it. There was a M1 carbine variant that was designed specifically for that, and certain bullpups, if they redid it in a pistol format, could do that. I just learned that the uh, FNP90 was based on uh, a very interesting firearm that went, unfortunately, not very damn far, uh, but it kind of had a reverse carbine setup thing. It was a very strange weapon. I'll include a link to that in the description after the stream. Yeah, it would cover even those. Long arm, any firearm with a stock or intended to be fired from the shoulder for which the barrel shall be 16 inches in length or greater and overall length of 26 inches or greater. Negotiable about those numbers. I put 16 and 26 because that's numbers that already existed. Truth of the matter is, I'd probably go 12 and 16, just personally. Anything over 12 inches with a barrel over 12 inches, you're not going to holster it. You're going to sling it. That's the reality of the matter. So yeah, I'm highly negotiable about those numbers. A pistol that's been built up into a rifle or into a stocked weapon would qualify. A stocked weapon that has the stock specifically removed would qualify as a pistol too. Now this creates a strange question: where do arm braces sit? I'm not actually prepared to answer that question myself. I'm gonna leave that to the ATF, who, by the way, already answered the question for me. There you go. Um, Shotgun. Any smoothbore firearm intended to discharge a number of smaller projectiles for which the barrel shall be 18 inches in length or greater and overall of 26 inches or greater. Again, I'm negotiable about those numbers. A little less flexible than rifle, but and I'm pretty sure we can all understand the difference between a gun and a rifle. What about a rifled shotgun barrel? Well, it's a rifle now. Okay. Assault weapon. Now, this is going to cause a fight. Any firearm fed by a detachable magazine, a magazine detachable without the use of tools, capable of discharging by design alone 2 or more rounds per singular trigger activation. Okay, let's start this from the top. Firearm fed by a magazine, detachable without the use of tools. Okay, so bullet button. Yeah, bullet button does not count. That is, you have to bring a tool into it to detach the magazine, right? What about a rifle that's been designed that you have to open the breech up? It's not a tool. Well, yeah, actually it is. You have to do something to disassemble the weapon. At the end of the day, that's what you got to do. Now, if everybody says, or disassemble, I'll go there. I'll make it more complex than it needs to be, but I'll go there. I'm just kind of hoping that leftists understand that some fights are just not worth the trouble. Capable of discharging by design alone 2 or more rounds per singular trigger activation. This places into question the subject of binary triggers. Now, I've never actually handled one, so I'm not too familiar with them. My understanding is you squeeze the trigger, it goes bang once, and then as you're releasing the trigger, it goes bang a second time. I defer to the ATF's decision on the matter. It's okay, that's fine. Machine gun, any firearm fed by a continuous feed system. All right. I've already said that I think laser weapons or something will happen in the next 20 years. I'm sorry, I should clarify. Happen in the next 20 years and be battlefield infantry practical. Right. So it would be something that a soldier in Iraq or Afghanistan or Iran or wherever they are would actually be able to use. Machine gun, any firearm fed by a continuous feed system. Right, take a hypothetical laser rifle, connect it to a generator. Is that a machine gun? Yeah, because that's a continuous feed system. The generator is creating the power. Let's assume that it's an assault weapon that uses specialized mag to connect to the generator. Is it still a machine gun? Well, no. It's fed by the detachable mag, and you can put a different mag in. Does it blur the lines? Sure. Do I care? Not that much. Right now, though, we're talking about mainly about belt fed. Gatling guns or hopper fed, but they would still qualify. Um, the original Gatling guns, that is. It is what it is. Bear with it. Autocannon, any machine gun of decimal 5 caliber, 12 decimal 7 by 99 or larger. That is the smallest caliber you can that I know of that you can practicably make for an explosive shell for. Anything smaller than that, they don't work out or they're not reliable. Now I know that there's an explosive 22 caliber. I also know that they don't explode every time, and sometimes they explode in the barrel. Just saying. Rotary gun. Any rotary multi-barreled gun, regardless of caliber, also regardless of feed. There's a 9 millimeter hand cranked uh, detachable box mag fed rotary gun out there. It looks like a cool toy for somebody who can afford that. I can't, and I'm not actually that big into toys. It would still qualify as a rotary gun. Now, it doesn't. It does matter, as you'll see later on, that it is detachable box mag fed. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to machine gun for a second because that is the subject. Um, continuous feed doesn't say anything about loading system, self loader, uh, bolt action, crank fed, or crank operated. Doesn't say anything about that. It's all the same. It's just continuous feed. That's the only thing that mattered. Caliber only matters if this Glock mag fed rotary gun, because it's not continuous feed, would not be any kind of restriction at all, because I think they're all 9 millimeters, so they're well below the autocannon level. It's not covered under that because it's too small. You could actually buy one at a hardware store or supermarket if they would go there. Okay, all other weapons. Any weapon that does not match a classification herein contained shall require an all other weapons permit and registration. Such permits shall be issued upon completion of standard NCIC background check without discovery of an exclusion. All peace officers shall be issued a class 3 permit without further restrictions. All right, so that's not my best section, and I know it needs to be cleaned up a lot. Something that breaks one of these definitions or all of these definitions, which I can't conceive of yet, you might have to do a little bit more to get one of those. It is what it is. One of the ones that comes to mind, almost makes the standard, is the not the SPAS 12, but the Cry Precision 612. That almost makes the standard. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, I guess I should say, for the civilian market, they decided they were a longer barrel on. So it doesn't meet any of these criterion. How about railguns? No, it launches a projectile by a energizing force. So it's still a firearm, whether it's a pistol or a long arm or something else, it's covered. Okay, body armor. Body armor refers to all protective clothing designed to absorb and or deflect attack by weapons. I deliberately put that in here to make sure that body armor would also be protected. This is not a mandate. This is a attempt to make sure that the little trick used by Clinton to ban body armor would go nowhere. Other protective gear, personal protective equipment, any article worn on the body designed to protect the wearer from injury, infection, or other attacks. I actually had to add that later on after I think 13, what is now 13, is in there because of something I add later on related to mask mandates. This is anything to protect you from injury. They're all covered. Handheld weapons meant to be held in an average human hand without expelling a projectile or projected energy. Knives, clubs, brass knuckles, those spiky things, they're all the same. This was specifically intended to make sure that nobody could say you can't have a trench knife because that's not listed in general codes. Armor penetrator. Any munition proven to penetrate military grade personal body armor in 9 out of 10 tests. Now, that's a very important detail. They actually have to line up 10 uh, body armor plates and penetrate that 9 out of the 10 times, or it's not armor penetrator. This was actually a response to certain ranges that say no steel core ammo. Not steel core ammo is actually armor penetrators. Most are not. It's just steel core, yeah, but it won't penetrate the armor. You got to prove it can, or it's not. Suppressor or silencer. Now, I put both terms on it to end this ridiculous Spurgish argument about is it a suppressor, is it a silencer? The original patent filing says a silencer. They don't actually make them invisible to the ear. So some people say, hey, you said silencer when you meant suppressor. You're a fake 2A. Fuck you. Okay. This will end that argument. Any device intended to reduce the noise or noises created by any weapon. Um, the only truly suppressed firearms that I'm aware of are both all three are bolt action. The Delisle carbine, which was a SMLE conversion to 45 cal, and he did everything he could to take the noise off that, including putting a mat underneath the charging handle so that bringing the handle down to the stock doesn't make any more noise than it absolutely has to. The next one was the well rod, which is also bolt action, and it did some very interesting things with that I'm not sure I'm comfortable discussing. And then there was a second generation well rod. Um, I'm not too familiar with that one, I'm afraid. But my understanding is that's also just an updated version. so it's bolt action as well. Magazine, any device intended for the holding of munitions. Magazines of less than 10 rounds capacity may not be used in long arms, except for maintenance and repair purposes, using any type of inert round except in regulated competition shooting during an organized event. Okay, that actually should say detachable magazines of less than 10 round capacity. So I will fix that. Basically, it actually bans the 10 round mags in general. It does leave open, except in regulated competition shooting during an organized event. So if you're going to an event, yeah, you can have your 10 rounders. Um, if you're a gunsmith, you can have your 10 rounders. If you're doing maintenance, but if you're out on the street and you have an AR-15 on your shoulder and it has a 10 round mag, you're in trouble. Congratulations. I refer to 10 round mags as concealment mags. The fact of the matter is, it makes an AR-10 almost flush, and an AK, it does make it flush. Oh, my, that's an interesting thing. You can make an AK-47 in a short barrel stockless variant fit into a holster. Not an oversized holster either, right? Oh, it has to be big enough for the gun to fit, but otherwise, not that big. I mean, it's not much bigger than a long barreled black powder revolver. You can fit that into a holster. Oh dear, now what? I refer to them as concealment mags for exactly that reason. Okay, because I had this screen share on full screen, I lost track of the uh, chat for a minute. Stop screen, share Windows, bring the chat back up so that, there we go. So I can bring the chat back up. Okay. Troll said, too bad I lost my guns in a freak boating accident. I lost mine in the divorce. Luke says, what's up? Just got here. Hey, Luke, I honestly, I'm impressed you can make it at all. I know everybody, Luke, um, I would ask you to pray for Luke and Buckle Bunny, who hasn't been here in a while. Luke is in a very, very uncomfortable place in life, and he could use some prayers. Luke also says people are dumb. A lot of those are people we mutually know. Um, no, Troll, not the back of a Volkswagen. Um, Luke, I'm sorry, I'm going to do this a little bit. Uh, Luke is in the middle of one of the cities that caught fire last summer. In fact, he pissed me off pretty good when a video of a truck driver getting ripped out of her truck went viral. Because it's a long shot, I couldn't tell that it was a woman. And for 2 days, I'm waiting for him to get back to me to tell me, oh, no, that wasn't me. I'm okay. Jesus fucking Christ. So, yeah. I, Luke, you need to respond to messages. Well, all of you need to respond to messages a little more urgently. Except Troll. Troll gets back to me pretty quickly. All right, so yeah, say a prayer for Luke. He's way, way past behind enemy lines. He's literally in the no man's land between enemy lines. Luke has reminded me that I'm not his parents. All right, moving on. Why this huge, ridiculous definitions list? Well, first of all, I want to address a continuous shit post. There's this thing going around that either everything semi-automatic and detachable mag or just semi-automatic is an assault weapon. I've actually seen people claim M1 Garands are assault weapons. You kidding me? Or nothing is an assault weapon. That's just a political term. Well, no, that's not the history of the light machine gun. World War I is going on. Machine guns exist. They're too heavy to, even if you're bugging out of your own trenches, you kind of have to capture it later. What do? Well, you develop a new kind of machine gun, one that can move forward with the infantry to assault enemy trenches. Actually had an interesting tactic. The tactic that they were building around this had an interesting name. It was called walking fire. Um, Out of this idea came the AVS 36, the Shosho, much abused Shosho, the BAR, which is actually not any better than the Shosho in the real world, um, the Bren, like 5 or 6 others that I just can't remember off the top of my head. And they all had this one thing in common. They were detachable box magazine fed like rifles. Well, take out the detachable box mag fed, you just described every other machine gun. And the term assault weapon or trench assault weapon was actually at the time. DJ, that's not true and that's not nice. And I leave Ian McCullum to address that statement. Wasn't the greatest gun ever. The Shosho was not the greatest gun ever. And in a current battlefield, it would be, yeah, pretty much not useful. Um, but it was actually a good gun based on what was available at the time. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And if you can prove Ian wrong, I'll give you $100. Troll says he's always been fond of the puckle gun. Oh, I got to get back to that in a second. Um, the abuse of this political term, non-technically used term, was something that had to be dealt with. Both sides are claiming they know the truth, and they're both full of shit. All right. Um, Assault weapon also covers a wide variety of different types. The MAT 49, MAT 49, the iconic gun of Indochina, 45 caliber submachine gun. And it's particularly noted because it's one of, I think, a half a dozen that had a folding magazine well. And that was the gun's only safety. A little bit worse, the gun was automatic only. Okay, it's a submachine gun, automatic only, no safety. The safety was you turn the magazine on, even if you did drop the gun, it wouldn't chamber around. So what difference? Oh, it was an open bolt, by the way, gun. So there shouldn't be a round in the chamber, mag out of alignment, that would be an assault weapon. Our Spurgish community will tell you that no, that's not, because it's a pistol. Okay, we'll come back to that later. That makes it a certain subset of assault weapons, but okay. And it was automatic only because it was not selective fire. Fuck you, right? You're going to tell me that an AK or an AR that's been modified automatic only in certain cases, most cases, is not an assault weapon, selective. Fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. I know who the fake here is. I'm going to say that yes, most of those are illegal conversions. I only know of 3 people that can legally conversion an AR or an AK to an automatic without purchasing it, well, converting it legally. All 3, one I thought had class 3. That was Brent, by the way. Brent, I thought all he had was a class 3, and I learned after he passed away that he actually had a class 7, which I guess is much, much higher. There's another outfit out of Florida, I think, and I'm not going to say their name because YouTube will throw it through them, but I follow them on Instagram, and it sounds like Slow Go. So you go follow them if you like. Um, they have the class 7. Almost had a working agreement with them, but fell apart on a few technical details. Um, there was one other. I forgot who it was now. I don't follow them anymore. Oh, it's not that. It's the people that got shut down because it was discovered that the owner of the company was highly inappropriate with his niece. Those guys, yeah, I talked to them in 2017 a few times when I was looking for people to maybe help support the channel. They declined, and then they got in trouble. It is what it is. They have the ability to make those conversions legally. I don't. I won't. And I don't think my guns would actually survive the conversion. I don't think the barrels are good enough to handle it, and I don't want it. Um, but you're really going to tell me that because it's not selective count? No, no. Don't waste my time with the shit post. Okay. Detachable magazine. The original writing was detachable box mag. Also due to forgotten weapons, that's in the column. I learned that there was more than just box mags out there. Pancor Jackhammer was the first one to uh, have a that I know have a cylinder mag. You know, like a revolver. Why? Well, that changes everything, doesn't it? You could get around the assault weapons definition by using a detachable cylinder mag. That would have been a problem. I'm just saying. So I wrote it so you cannot circumvent the rules, the laws, the whatever, with some sort of clever arguments. All right, Troll says, I've always been fond of the puckle gun. The puckle gun used a cylinder mag, a detachable cylinder mag, but it was also not self-loader, and it was not a um, continuous feed system. So there's no rules on a puckle gun. Have fun. By the way, if you ever build one, call me. All right. DJ Play Nice says, oh, Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. But it sounds like in the short burst when I shot one. Shot, show, shot, show, shot, show, shot. Oh, oh, DJ, I'm so sorry. I understand now. He's talking about the show, show, shot comment that when he fired one, it that's what show, 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 shot. And sometimes that's, there's a reason why it's called Feel the Burt, Luke. It's because A10 when it's going off actually sounds like a Burt. There's also play on words. Show equals show. I was supposed to be amusing, not offensive. Now that I understand, it's slightly hilarious. Shot a Bren gun for the first time last week. BARs are fun. I've never actually touched a BAR, and I've only seen one a couple of times. I've never even seen a Bren gun. Those of you that are not familiar with every kind of weapon, like I am, a Bren was a top load fed, detachable box magazine, light machine gun developed by the British in late in World War I believe. And they were fucking awesome guns. They were great. They are so accurate that people have asked, do they qualify as a sniper rifle? And that was actually one of them. Too accurate to be a machine gun. I defer to Mike from Bloke on the Range to address that, but no, there's no such thing. They are very, very accurate. More accurate than a machine gun normally would be. And I actually addressed this months ago when I said what I thought the next generation infantry weapons would be under machine gun. They were going to loosen up the barrel so that bullets would fly everywhere, because that's what a suppression should do. But it also, and I'm just going to say, Mike said that's ridiculous. All you have to lean left, lean right, or twist your body or something like that to throw the bullets everywhere. Just close your eyes. Your hand will shake enough to throw the bullets everywhere. BAR was actually a considered platform for the development of that next gen infantry weapon as well. Yes, I think it's probably going to be an AR derived system, but BAR was definitely one of the ones I thought of as I'm actually filming, but not saying. Okay, we're coming up on minute 9:35 here. So start throwing out some questions, except for you, Luke. You need to pay attention to what you're doing. DJ says, I tried walking fire with the BAR. Not easy. Hip fire made it look badass, but it is not easy to control in what's really counterintuitive, or it was to me versus shouldered. Okay. If I understood DJ correctly, this is actually something that's been expressed by other people. Ian was one of them. Uh, he's he seemed to have a better time with the BAR shouldered rather than hip fired. The idea at the time of the BAR's development was A, you didn't want it to be that accurate, and B, it was too powerful to shoulder fire. So what they did instead, they made a belt with this cup. You put it into the cup, fire the gun as you marched along or marched forward towards the enemy trenches, and just your hip alone swinging around like that will throw the bullets halfway from Flanders to Paris. Right? And that's what they thought they needed. By the time of Vietnam, they understood, you don't need All right. Um, on comes the XM 558, I think. Oh god damn it. Somebody in the chat correct me. Yes, the cuff. Cuff? Okay, so it's the thing on the belt's called the cuff. My bad. Um, but yeah, that's what they thought they wanted. Turns out shoulder fire was better. Why do I not consider the BAR a machine gun? Why do I consider it an infantry weapon, even though it had at least one assistant gunner and usually two assistant gunners carrying spare ammo? Because you could carry that ammo yourself, right? And I've done it. I did not carry the a BAR. I've never actually touched a BAR myself. But you could carry a couple hundred rounds yourself, not that much trouble. It's uncomfortable, but it's doable. Yes, DJ, exactly like a waist mount. It was a belt with a cup. Well, I don't know what the hell they called it. I believe they called it a cup. Put the butt of the rifle into the cup, and the gun firing at the waist would go into the cup, and supposedly you could hold it steady. In the real world, it never works out that way. Um, yeah, that's what they did. I remember from when I was about 2 or 3 years old, I was watching TV. I was probably watching afternoon cartoons, and a news brief came on. It was a Hispanic lady in a red dress talking about guns, and she's holding what I now understand to be an AK pattern, probably a 47. She's standing in front of the camera, kind of like this. And she says, I remember these words, can be fired rapidly from the hip. She drops the gun down and actually fires from the hip. Knowing a little more about the nature of the world, she might have had an actual AK 47s. Pre 1986, she might have gotten her hands on an actual AK. More likely, she got her hands on a semi auto. You remember this much. Even as little as I was, I knew she was the lady on TV news. I remember thinking, lady on TV news. And I remember I remember understanding that she doesn't like guns from the things that she's saying. Now, the only actual words I remember is fired rapidly from the hip. If any of you are old enough to remember that era, this was San Diego area news. Um, she wasn't firing rapidly from the hip. She was probably firing a semi-auto, and she didn't even hit the lane she was in. I don't remember them saying anything, but what I do remember of that video, that film, she would have been at a gun range, an indoor gun range. She didn't even hit the lane she was in. She hit 5 lanes over one direction, 3 the other, and couldn't hit anything in her own lane if she did stop shooting that way. Hip fire is never accurate and rarely effective. We're at about 20 minutes until we're going to wrap it up. Yeah. Okay. So I want to go today's stream. Canada, my fellow Canadians, um, our prime minister has become a tyrant. Right now, all he's doing is trying to lay the groundwork to justify it later. It's time for him to go. I remember when Nicolae Ceausescu left office, and I'd prefer to not see it go that way. All right. I'd prefer to see Justin in prison for the rest of his life, which is where he belongs. Canadian police, ironically enough, are leading the way in this matter. Uh, on Ontario Prime Minister, Minister rather, I believe it was, set out a ton of edicts that you will obey these rules of COVID, and at least the smaller department police said no, we're not doing this. That's how bad it's really gotten. Now Justin has issued new edicts that are completely illegal and forcing the Canadian people into a position where they are going to have to fight back or they will just die. That's the position we're actually in. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Hi, Scout. Scout Dog says, is it still the Justin Trudeau guy? I'm not, I don't quite understand the question, so I'm going to assume you mean, is it just Justin, these edicts? No. Uh, Rob Ford, the Ontario minister, went and made some similar edicts, and they almost had to get him out of the province, like a scene out of the Fall of Saigon. All right, people were that mad. The police said, "We're not enforcing this." Oh, some of them did. One of the greatest dangers to society, to civilization in general, when the police refuse to enforce laws, that's a green light for the criminals to do anything they want. Now, I understand setting priorities. I really understand setting priorities. You don't need a cop being paid $26 an hour to write parking tickets, right? But when they refuse to enforce laws, even if it's just one or two laws because they don't like that law, that's the start of the collapse of civilization. So I'm very, very wary of Canadian cops saying, we're just not going to enforce this. But it's gotten to the point where they feel that's what they have to do. Oh, okay. It's gotten to be that bad, huh? And the fact of the matter is, no revolution has ever been successful when the enforcers of the law, be it a brute squad or a army or beat cops, refuse to side with the revolutionaries. It doesn't happen, right? Because those beat cops and soldiers and brute squads are going to come in and beat the crap out of the revolutionaries, and the revolution's over. It's when they stop that the revolutionaries can move forward. The Russian Revolution was particularly bad because cops just walked off the job. Some of them walked right into the revolutionaries. They weren't getting paid, they weren't getting fed, and they weren't getting happy. It's also what happened in '89 when the coup fell apart. Problem that would continue for the next, I think it was 5 years when KGB, this was the time when KGB agents would sell documents for 500 US dollars on anything you wanted that they could get access to. Um, and that's the reality. Right. Trudeau is going very quickly full on tyrant, and he's actually like three-quarters of the way there. All he has to do is make up the next excuse for the next set of the Constitution and doing whatever the hell he wants. Definitions are intentionally vague and broad so that nobody later on can say, whoa, that's not what they meant. Well, yeah, actually, it is exactly what I meant, up to and including not detailing what kind of magazines, up to and including not detailing uh, what calibers are involved for most things. And when I am specific, I am pointedly and exceedingly specific to the degree that I realize I got to go back and make a couple of corrections. I should have used detachable magazine a couple times. I didn't. Okay. I want to thank the viewers for it. Realize that. I will fix that. And have a get home bag. Troll says to hip fire a BAR, you have to have excellent trigger discipline and great timing. You support the barrel with recoil and hesitate fire to drop back on target. Okay. Well, it's a very curious detail. I thought that all they did was just kind of try to hold the barrel down enough to keep it aligned to the enemy trench and then just hold that trigger back and keep going. So, learn something new every day. Um, no, TSA has to be reined in. All right, this is absolutely ridiculous. People are being tried and convicted in secret courts for being at a location. You know, the thing that always will startle and upset me, and I know it's been said a million times that a leftist is an idiot and their whole attitude is it's okay when our side does it. Dear leftists that are going to watch this later, what is your malfunction? Let me put this bluntly. What is your malfunction? Do you not understand the same rules that you're abusing now are going to be used against you later? All right. Let's take a wild ass scenario. Um, for global warming reasons, the speed limit in your electric car is now being set maximum speed limit 45 miles an hour. Okay. Now, some of you will just get along with it because, oh, boy, why do I need to go faster than 45 miles an hour? I don't travel long distances or whatever. I don't care. Some of you are going to say, no, I like to drive fast. So you modify your car to go 60 miles an hour and you drive down the road 60 miles an hour. Then you're pulled over for driving 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. Go to Facebook and you complain because I was on the freeway. Yeah, I was doing 60 miles an hour, but so what? It was an empty freeway. Now they're going to use this Facebook posting to justify having you arrested or at least secretly tried. Now what? You need to decide which hills you want to die on, right? You think you just sold out every right winger for protesting at the Capitol, and it's only going to be them? No, it's going to come back to you. Sooner or later, the things that you think you're doing to the enemy now is going to come back to haunt you. I'm old enough to remember the abortion debates from the late 80s, the Battle of Wichita. Okay, I'm old enough to remember Jerry Falwell and Pat, what was her name? I can't remember her name now. She was the president of National Organization of Women for like 20 years until she passed away. um, the two of them standing on literally opposite sides, and there's this really great photograph that ended up on the cover of Time magazine of the two of them literally screaming at each other. I remember seeing that on the nightly news. Imagine a world in which, for reasons that you may not be able to predict right now, abortion becomes illegal. Better still, imagine a world in which procreation suddenly becomes mandatory. Okay. Envision this world where they don't care if you're gay or straight or bi or otherwise in your personal life. You must breed. That is the law. You say, I do not want to. I don't care why. You think you're genetically unfit. You don't want the financial responsibility. You don't want the emotional responsibility. You don't want a million and one things. Maybe you just don't want to participate in a mandatory thing. And maybe it really is as simple as that. They said I have to, so I don't want to do it now. You're you leftists out there. Now they say you have to by law. The same rules that you think you're using on us right wingers, which I'm actually not. Now, I'm going to come back to haunt you then. You spoke to the government in a way that they didn't like, right? And now you're a terrorist for attending a rally opposing mandatory breeding. Troll as oh, okay. I'm sorry. I already read that. I'm just saying you should be opposing this more so. Leftists should be fighting these unconstitutional laws even more than the rest of us because you people are prone to violence. You spoke up against the government and you've used violence in the past. You think they're going to ignore that you spoke against the government now? No, 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 no. They're going to hammer you twice as hard for the difference. All right, we're coming up into the last 5-ish minutes. Rein in the TSA. Remove Trudeau from office. And praying that it's a Canadian Parliament that finally says, no, Justin, come here. We're having this talk, whether you want to have it at this time or not. Go give Viva Free's video on the subject a thorough watch. It's timestamped to where he brings Justin's comments in, but you can restart it from the beginning. Learn and understand the definitions that I use. I know that they're odd to some people, but they are based on a scientifically measurable history. You can absolutely say that is a machine gun or that is not a machine gun. That is an assault weapon or it is not an assault weapon. That is a firearm or it is not a firearm. Slingshot is not a firearm, it's a slingshot. DJ brings up an interesting one. The Handmaid's Tale in re to forced breeding. Yeah, actually, that's exactly. I've never seen The Handmaid's Tale. I just know I had it described to me by a leftist 4 years ago. In the backdrop of a global population drop off, was it a pandemic? Um, a fictionalized version of the United States mandates breeding big time. And if you refuse, you can be punished. I have seen clips, and there's one in which two women are in the back of a van. They've been convicted of being lesbians, nothing else. The one is a higher social status, so she's being shipped off to prison or something, basically a rape facility. The other one is a lower social status, so they are going to summarily hang her. And they're not going to hang her scientifically, they are going to strangulate her. Um, I'll get back to you in a second there. They're going to strangulate her, really. And I remember that this scene, the two of them are crying because they're both about to die, and they're both staring at each other, and their only crime is they love women. Oh my! Oh, by the way, um, if you can show me a single religion that actually forbids women to be with women, give you $100. A long, long list of religions that forbid men from being with men, but a pretty short list. I've only heard of one, and no, it is not Islam, that bans women from being with women. It's one of the Eastern religions. Okay, a troll wants me to say the word eugenics. Think there's no possibility of eugenics being passed. I to sell you. It's in it's in Arizona, but I can still sell it to you, and you can if you want. It's a dirty word. Literally, troll just said. Eugenics is a dirty word, and don't think it can't come back. DJ says dystopian birth rate fall off and worse climate change disease. Okay, so that's the backdrop for Handmaid's Tale. Like I said, I've only really seen the one scene, the two women being put in the. I think they start in the back of the van, and there's a flashback to the trial, and then they're in the van. The one is hung. Not the world any of us really want to live in. Know and understand the definitions that I use, because I know a lot of people will fight me, especially about that assault weapons definition. Okay, Boomer. Especially those of you that insist that I meant assault rifle, and that means inner cartridge and select fire. Yeah, sure. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up with this. Keep calm, mandatory carry on. And please share the most important videos playlist as far and wide as you can.
Yeah.
Good luck, people. We're gonna need it.